Welcome back to my channel. I'm Traven. These are my tomes, and today we're going to go over everything I read in December of 2025. We're going to get a number of these out of the way quickly because I've got other videos that discuss these. So I did a couple of Christmas murder mystery vlogs or festive murder mystery time. I did a Can I Solve for Miss Winter in the Library with a Knife. This one I liked quite a bit. I think I gave it 4 stars. The puzzles in here were a lot of fun, and I feel like I was able to solve a lot of the mystery within the mystery, and then also the main mystery. I got pretty close on solving it as well, and that is part of what I enjoy in those particular videos, is trying to see if I can solve the mystery. I felt like the story here was pretty good, and I like that it has the clue finder at the end that shows you all the hints that the author dropped that you might have missed, and I missed a lot. But it was a lot of fun, and I liked the classic nature of this mystery. Murder at Holly House, I think I gave 2 stars. I did not like this book. I didn't like the protagonist. I didn't feel like the mystery was anything that was solvable or fun. It didn't feel Christmassy, which was something I was hoping for from a book with this kind of cover. It definitely seems like it's going for that whimsy, and it was set during Christmas. People talk about it being cold sometimes, but I just felt like the main character was not interesting. There's parts where they talk about how they don't even feel like the main character, and I agree. It was kind of a slog to get through this one. We have Murder by Christmas, which is kind of like a murder mystery advent calendar where you can go through and read 1 entry a day up to Christmas Day, and you have a little puzzle for each day. Now this one was hit or miss. The puzzles were sometimes fun and other times very tedious and really loose with the rules and with the expectations of what you're supposed to do. So I felt like this one was so-so. I think I ended up at 3 stars with this one. It's not one that I think I would recommend unless you are definitely looking for a murder mystery advent calendar style book, like that very niche idea. I don't think you would get as much enjoyment out of this if you were just trying to read it through. We had Golden Age Christmas Mysteries, which is a short story collection of Christmas themed murder mystery shorts, and I really like this one. I've enjoyed both of the Christmas mystery collections I've read so far. I read one last year, which was Mysterious Bookshop, collecting their yearly submissions for that particular bookstore, and those are all Christmas themed as well. This one is just a bunch of different authors and their Christmas mystery stories. Again, kind of hit or miss. Some of them were very silly, some of them were not solvable, and most of them were just kind of like you're along for the ride and trying to figure out the story as it goes. But there were some really fun ones in here, and overall I did enjoy reading most of the stories here. So I think I would probably give this one like a 3.5 to a 4. Overall, really enjoyable. I'd check it out if you're into that kind of genre. I listened to the audiobook of Monsters and Mainframes. This one I wanted to like so much, and I just didn't. I feel like the pacing was really a detriment here. The premise of the story is amazing. So this is about a ship's AI that is attacked by Dracula, and then they're attacked by a werewolf. They're attacked by like a space Cthulhu-esque colony of like cult worshippers. And you're seeing all this from the perspective of the AI, so the way that they interact with the world is slightly off of what you would expect. But like I said, the problem here is the pacing issue. The back of the book really made it seem like the gathering together of all these crazy forces was going to be the main thrust of the book. What you get instead is a very slow start where you have the Dracula encounter, and that goes on for a while, and then you have a very long, a very prolonged story of the werewolf encounter and the aftermath of that, and then you have a drawn out story of like the next thing that this ship is having to deal with, and it matters in the end. Like some of the things that are formed, the relationships that are building in those early parts do matter for later in the story, but I feel like they were not presented in a way that made it snappy like you want this kind of crazy story to be. It was very plodding. This is one that I think has an amazing premise. It does have a very fun conclusion. Like once that story picks up of everybody kind of colluding and working together, all these crazy different monsters on this spaceship, I think that's a lot of fun, but I don't feel like the lead up was handled well. Next up, we have Books of Slaughter Volume 1. This one's interesting. It's only about 98 pages long, and I would say that of all the Something is Killing the Children offshoots, this is the most aimed at the person who is like obsessed with this world and very much wanting to get the lore of the stories that have been told in Something is Killing the Children and House of Slaughter and all these other offshoots, because a good part of this book is literally just like the in-universe books they give to the hunters about how the different monsters work and how you hunt them, and it's very fun for someone who is invested in the lore like I am, but I don't think someone casually picking this up is going to have a good time. It's far too steeped in the lore of the story, both with the idea that you're reading through this textbook essentially, but also the character that we're following is one that is intricately wrapped up in events from Something is Killing the Children and from stories that were told in some of the offshoot books as well. So this one's one for the fans. And if you are a fan of Something is Killing the Children and you have not picked up Books of Slaughter, I would encourage you to do so, because it is deeper lore and more information of this world building that's going on. But otherwise, I think you can safely skip this one. But do check out Something is Killing the Children. In contrast, I feel like Kaiju number 8, Relax, is going back to the roots of the manga that I am sorely missing in the later chapters, as it has become pretty much a straightforward action shonen series, and we have lost the levity and fun of the opening few chapters. So Kaiju number 8, Relax, tells the story of the kaiju response squad on their days off when they just go and have fun. So there are various stories in here where they go to the arcade or they're just hanging out together and like, what do they do? And just kind of palling around, having fun. It goes back to some of the early gags in the manga. This is clearly meant to be taking place before the big reveal. Kafka is having to like disguise himself and having to like hold back his kaiju form, which again is something I think when we turned that corner in the manga, we haven't really gone back to the silly that permeated the beginning of the book, and this brought that back. So I really enjoyed it. I think I gave this one 3 stars as well, just because it is like completely separating the two from one another, and I really missed the time when it was kind of like a synergistic thing where the humor just kind of naturally flowed from the story instead of having a separate title that's all humor. But I definitely chuckled a bit on this one, and if you're missing the levity from the early Kaiju number 8 chapters, I think this is a good pickup, and it was a lot of fun to read. Also very quick. I read Aster and the Mixed Up Magic, which is the second and final book of the Aster series, which I find really unfortunate because this really gives me vibes of like a somewhat more serious Adventure Time maybe, or like a Hilda, if you're a fan of that series, where you just have this young girl in a magical forest and crazy things are happening. In this one, she's fighting a goat army and the goats are really dumb and it's just a lot of fun. We deal with some of the repercussions of what happened in the first book, which was nice to see. She has a tiny little fox friend right there, which is adorable. And yeah, I just thought that this was full of a lot of whimsy and fun. Nothing, genre breaking, nothing that is going to like blow anybody's mind. But if you just want like a cozy fall read or a cozy winter read, I think it is a great choice. I gave this 4 out of 5. I read Quested Volume 1. This is a book that I've been interested in because there is an offshoot series called Kaiju Detective, and I was really tempted to just pick it up, but then I saw it was an offshoot from this and thought, well, I should at least look into this book and see how it is. This is trying to ride a very fine line between kind of the satirical fantasy genre, but also one that is still very much done with love and respect for the source material. The main character here is the son of a famous adventurer, and he is very much concerned with like maintaining that appearance, but the way he goes about doing that is mostly by buying people off and like setting up princess kidnappings that he can then go and resolve. At times this is particularly violent and very much over the top. I would say this is much further into the like Adventure Time, the weird kind of Adventure Time setups. But I did really enjoy it, and I do want to pick up more of this and probably pick up Kaiju Detective as well now that I've had a chance to read it. This does not hit quite as mature as Rat Queens, if you are familiar with that series, so it's maybe a step down from that, but definitely in that same realm, in that same discussion as far as a take on fantasy adventure D&D-esque storytelling that is a little bit crazy, a little bit violent, a little bit weird, but still a lot of fun to read. I read Brandon Sanderson's new short story collection, Tailored Realities. Now this one, like all short story collections, is kind of hit or miss. Some of them were a lot of fun. Some of them were very straightforward. Some were admittedly experiments by the author to try a certain thing, including one that was nothing but dialogue, which I thought was an interesting thought experiment, but maybe not the strongest type of writing, but I think Sanderson agrees. One of the things that I really appreciated from this short story collection, though, is that every single story comes with an afterword by Sanderson talking about the kind of the thought process behind making the story. In some cases, it has multiple afterwords, multiple commentaries because it's been republished so many times. There's one that I found particularly interesting because Sanderson has changed the ending of the story several different times for several publications, and he kind of talked about how what the motivation behind those changes was, what he was feeling at the time that he took out the original ending, put it back in. I think it reads better with the additional ending that is included in this one, but I can definitely see the argument and discussion he said was surrounding it, why some people might feel differently. So this is squarely more of the sci-fi side of Sanderson. So if you mostly know him for like Mistborn or Stormlight Archives, I want to see what he does with more of a science fiction bent, this would be a good thing to pick up. It also contains a short story from the Reckoners series, which I thought was maybe a little bit of a misstep just because that one does rely heavily on you already knowing how that universe operates and what's going on. It did include some explanations as to like what was going on, but I found them clunky and awkward. The story itself was fine, but I do think that that's one that would be better served just reading along with the series and not in a short story collection. Other than that, I really enjoyed everything that was in here. I think it was worth the read. Gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I listened to the audiobook of Where the Dark Stands Still. I would say this is a fairly by the numbers romantasy YA story about a girl who goes out to the forest because she's looking to get rid of her magic. Her magic causes her nothing but problems, and she's rescued by the Lord of the Forest by becoming basically his servant for a year. So she works for him for a year, and then he promises that he will grant her wish and free her of her magic. There's obviously more going on in the story than that. She starts noticing different things around the house and these different creepy happenstances going on. All the different creatures and monsters inhabiting the spirit wood. I liked the various beasties, and I liked the backstory that was slowly unveiled here. But ultimately, plot-wise, it didn't do anything to really stand out, and so ended up as a 3-star. A good read. One that had a bit of fun in it, but not anything that like really blew me away. All right, I read Kings of the Wild. This was one of my 10 new series to try for 2025, and I liked it pretty well. I think I got this one 4 stars. And it is about a group of like kind of washed up adventurers past their prime and kind of in retirement with families, and they have to come back together to do one last job because the daughter, one of their daughters, is now in danger. Again, I felt like the world building here was fine. They introduced the Wildwood, which is where the title comes from. That was their band name, was Kings of the Wild, because they had kind of gone through this Wildwood several times, and they talk about all the dangers of the Wildwood. But when they get to the Wildwood, not a whole lot of dangers. Like they are there for a handful of chapters. They come across a couple of beasties. But mostly it's like describing what the Wildwood could be like and what horrors could be there, and not actually like dealing with that. There's a little bit of like world hopping going on as they it's like a road trip kind of movie. Would be a good an analogy, as they're trying to like get the crew back together. So you get a good sense of how the world works in a fairly organic way. Nothing ever really seemed like it was like clunky or awkward. I liked the idea of having this band of older people past their prime going back for one last adventure. I felt like the execution was good. A little bit more threat when it came, especially to the Wildwood and to like the final conflict that they built up over all this time, to then only to ultimately then like circumnavigate in a way. So I feel like the end of this book was a little disappointing, but the ride there had a lot of fun parts. Finally, I read Batman Santa Claus Silent Night, which is a Batman story where Santa Claus comes in and they have to fight a bunch of Christmas-themed monsters and Krampus. And I think there were some ghosts in here. They might have been the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future. I like the way that this book incorporated Santa Claus and changed his backstory to be more like action oriented, and also to tie in with Krampus as kind of a foil for each other. That was a lot of fun. Also, like, this is big into the magic side of DC, and I really like that. So it's like Zatanna's there at the beginning. We have a number of cameos here from characters that I really enjoy. Blue Beetle's in at one point. And also Superman's reaction to meeting Santa Claus was just perfect. I loved it. So a lot of fun here. I think this is not a paragon of literature, obviously. But if you just want a fun Christmas story with some superheroes, I think this is the best we could have hoped for. And I had a lot of fun with it. So I gave it 4 out of 5. And that's everything I read for December. Thanks for coming and hanging out with me today as I talked through my recent reads. Let me know down in the comments below what you read for December. What are you reading now? What are you planning on reading in the future? You got any recommendations for me for 2026? As always, I hope your reading journey is going well. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so we can grow this corner of our BookTube community. And until the next one, take care. They were ghosts.
They weren't ghosts. They were people from the Phantom Zone.
They were possessing him, and there are three of
Ghosts.
and there are three of them.
There were three of them. It was a parallel.
It's a parallel. Okay, they're basically ghosts.
I guess.
They're basically ghosts.